Hello guys, my name is Hemant Joshi and I'm the speaker today. Less of a speaker, more of a practitioner who will work with you. So while I do my 8 slides boring presentation, I would request all of you to get your laptops out, get them plugged in, because after the slides, we do hands-on. We are going to do 2 notebooks. First one is simple RAG example. And then the second one would be agents and agentic workflow. Okay. We are going to keep it very interactive because I tend to get sleepy when I'm talking alone to myself or to the wall. So we'll try to make it interactive. Just to start things off, and by no means I'm judging anybody here, but just so that I know how we are situated, show of hands, how many people are here to find out what LLMs are? Hopefully we all know what large language models are, what they do. How many of us are familiar with RAG? Okay, most of us are. So the first example is going to be RAG. Just briefly, retrieval augmented generation is a way to avoid some of the pitfalls of hallucination. And again, I'm using the terms carefully here. Just because you use RAG does not mean you will not have hallucination at all, because language models by design are indeterministic and they tend to get creative. You would have noticed one thing, GPT-5 has disabled parameter called temperature altogether in their APIs. There is a reason for that, okay? First of all, I was always kind of mystified to understand why it's called temperature. It's like checking, are you okay? Are you okay? For LLMs, but probably for the lack of better word, we started with temperature, but now we are moving away from that. And considering that OpenAI has about 700 million users, it's a significant shift in the way we are thinking about these things, right? But hallucination is a real world problem, and evaluation and grounding and fact checking is the only way to find out if something is working the way it is supposed to or not. Now, one question I get asked that, hey, hallucination is the big thing, why LLMs should not be used. So here is my answer to that question. Yes, hallucination is real, and it can affect the outcome in some cases, especially imagine you're a doctor and for the same patient with same symptoms, sometimes you say you have this and sometimes you say you have that. That's not only going to be inconsistent, but also could be life-threatening, right? So it makes a huge difference for which application you are using it for. The other thing that we need to also keep in mind is that there actually, it's a funny thing, but when people make mistake, right? I write code, and if I made a mistake in my code, do we call it mistake? No, we call it bug. As if somebody else, it somehow crept in my code. I don't know, there is a bug in my code, like something just entered it, right? The easy, transparent way of saying it is, I screwed up, sorry for the language, but I messed up, this is my doing, right? Another way of saying the same thing is hallucination, okay? With high confidence, when LLM says, yes, you have cancer, right, for example, that's one way of saying that is, well, you messed up, your assumptions are wrong, and that's why we have these thinking models where it shows how it came to that conclusion, and then you can even analyze that now. But then, why do I need a LLM, right? Just by calling it hallucination, that doesn't make it any better for the person. So the real answer is to have checks and balances in place for any system, any automation system, semi-automated system, whether it is using LLMs or not. I'm not just talking about language models or agents or GenAI, but any automated system needs to have checks and balances in place. That's the bottom line. And then when you have those gates, checks in place, these things need to be evaluated from time to time because they are evolutionary, right? And we are going to see some of that. Let me put this to silent so I don't get my favorite telemarketer's call. I would request you all to do the same, okay, unless we want to talk to somebody today. All right, so let's get started, okay. I'm going to go over some of the basics, but these are, and I'm assuming certain things here. You can feel free to ask me any question. If you two can please stand up or raise your hand at least. This is Meeta in the second row, and then we have Satya. Both are very technical, and some of the hands-on things, if you get stuck, just raise your hand. One of these guys will help you. If you still need to ask me something, I'll be happy to answer those questions as well. I'm just trying to make sure that given the time limit that we have, we can actually get something done today, okay? So the least exciting part, right? Let me go through these slides just to set the context, and you're gonna hear me say that word again and again. LLMs need context, agents need context, and so do presenters like me, okay? So this is setting the context. If you're trying to build, orchestrate, and scale GenAI projects, right? There are three basic challenges. This was a report that came out from AWS survey of 9,000 plus companies. So this is not a small number of GenAI kind of workloads and what are their challenges, right? Pain points. The three pain points that come often, one is that going from idea to POC takes too long. It takes about 3 months for a team of data scientists to kind of at least have something working that is with proper evaluation and trying out different LLMs. So it takes time. The second is they don't know exactly what the TCO is, total cost of ownership. How much will it cost? How will I stay in budgets, right? And then third thing is in going from POC to production, they don't know how to scale. How will it get orchestrated? How will they manage? What's the single pane of glass, right? If I'm a CTO of a company, CIO of a company, I want to know what my token usage for that 10,000 users of my chatbot are, and am I staying within my budgets? Am I still secure, or am I still answering questions that are so random that I should not be answering? I should have guardrails in place, right? So all those things are essentially can be distilled to these three steps, right? Design a prototype for builders and engineers, developers, people like me. Develop with compliance. Compliance becomes primary for banking, regulatory sectors, but it should be primary for most of us. Again, for the reasons I mentioned, that if you are looking to keep evaluation and scalability in mind from the beginning, you develop with compliance and evaluate constantly. That's just the way it is. Those days are gone where you could write a piece of code and you write unit test case, you run your unit test case. If it passes, you move on to the next module or next component or whatever that is, right? Because here, the coding assistants like Cursor, Windsurf are actually evolving that code again and again. So you need to have mechanisms to test that code. And same is true even for an application built with LLMs. And then last is, how do you go from prototype to production? Deploy with confidence, right? You need to have that ability to say, okay, if we have 10,000 users making queries like this, it's going to cost us these many dollars. My average latency expected with this LLM would be that, and some X number of milliseconds or seconds. And then my agentic workflows will work at that speed, and they will work here in a secure environment while still making the decisions using some tools or MCP servers, right? So the philosophy that we follow is BEADS. I just came up with a cool acronym, but BEADS stands for build, execute, evaluate, deploy, and scale. These 5 pillars is how FloTorch is built, and we're going to see that today. In fact, I'll probably not have time to talk a whole lot about evaluation, but we'll use the SDK that we have. Build, as the name suggests, it's with a no-code, low-code experience. You can build your agent, drag and drop, whatever. Not something I'm excited to do today because I'm excited to kind of actually write code with you and share with you code samples that you can take home. Execute, you can run it either in a FloTorch hosted runtime. Most of our customers don't. They host it in their runtimes, on their GPUs or on their environments. Evaluation, I already talked about. You can evaluate agents, tools, LLMs. There are different things you evaluate, right? There is accuracy, cost, latency, and then you have various parameters. What does accuracy mean for you might be different than what accuracy means for somebody else. You're talking about precision, recall, maybe answer relevancy. Somebody else is talking about maliciousness, faithfulness. Ragus has different metrics, so does Deep Eval, and you can write your custom evaluations as well. Deploying, in this case, means deploying it through the gateway, right? Because FloTorch is a gateway application. It's an application gateway that runs within your environment, and using that, you can deploy a model, and I'll talk about what a model means in this context. And then you can scale it to multiple ways. You can optimize it. You can do dynamic model routing. You can use caching, right, to make it better. So this is actually a working example, except that I have just masked the keys. On the left-hand side is your typical way to kind of build an application. So imagine that you're writing some query where this is your main function here, okay? You have some Gemini API key. What is the Gemini Flash 2.0 model? You ask some question. This is your URL. This is your model name. And you form a URL like that. You send it to this function called call model API, which is here. You pass it some payload, prompt, get the response back for that key, for the API key that you have provided. And the response, you can print it from this candidate's 0 content parts text, right? And you'll get the response for that particular query. This is a working example, by the way. So that's how the typical, very simple call to Gemini API would look like, right? And I'm just using it to show you what it makes sense to look at, right? So if you now look at the corresponding FloTorch approach, the code lines look similar, okay? The only difference here would be instead of Gemini API key, you are using FloTorch API key. The same question is passed here. Instead of Google Gemini endpoint for googleapis.com, you are using your gateway, FloTorch gateway cloud URL. And then your model, instead of Gemini 2.5 Flash, could be whatever FloTorch slash something, right? So FloTorch slash means it's a registered model with us. And there is a reason why we are using, you can put any name here, whatever name you are registered with. I'm just using the same name to make it similar, but it is FloTorch slash, and there is a reason for that. It's using Gateway's model registry. It allows you to build these models with some name, and tomorrow, even if underlying model could be different, it could be 3.0 Flash or it could be 8.9 Flash, your business application won't have to change because you would be just writing something like FloTorch slash model, let's say, or my model or model 1, whatever that name is. It's just a model name or a placeholder. Underlying model could be one or more, and we are going to talk about that. The second difference is at the top, you have one more line added called FloTorch LLM, and then we are passing the same thing. The only new information is here, right? So apart from this, you are also able to get the response as well as the tokens used. And by the way, you can get tokens used here as well by parsing that JSON, because for every input request, output request, you can get that. But then this is going to do these things and also be able to show you observability stack trace the way you can see in a waterfall model, where you can see where the time has been spent, what call was made initially, and then what was the response, did you use caching, what was the latency, and so on, right? So that's the observability stack. But as you can see, both are actually pretty similar in many ways. I'm not drawing the advantage of using FloTorch yet. If you are just seeing this, you'll be like, there is not much significant advantage why I should use FloTorch here, okay? So let's dive a little bit deep into that and see what it would look like, right? So your typical business application, let's say chatbot, right, is this UI where you have the window where you type in some question, you'll get the response back from some LLM, right? It could be the Gemini LLM that is sitting here, or Llama model, or Azure, OpenAI, Cohere, any of these, right? Pick your favorite LLM there, right? Any of these are all third-party specific LLMs, right? And then you'll have to think about how do I add guardrails for my application. And then you need to think about, should I be caching some on my application level, right? Should I use Redis? Should I use Mem0? Should I use something else? How will I route requests that, hey, during the peak hours between 10 and 1 o'clock every day, or during the weekdays, I need to have some burst capacity where I can handle requests with kind of better SLAs. And then from 1 o'clock onwards, I want it different. Or I want to stay within my budget. Say I have a budget of, say, $500. In first 10 days, I have blown through the $400 out of that. In last 20 days, can I switch to a smaller model, cheaper model, and still have most of my queries answered properly? All those routing options you need to think about if you have that constraint. And then observability is a given in today's world. You can't improve what you can't measure. That's a simple rule here, okay? If you can't measure something, you can't improve it. So the only way to measure something is to observe, right? And observe it not only in dev, but also in QA and in production to see if the behaviors are same or similar, or are they different? Is it doing something different in production than what you designed it for in dev environment? So how will that translate to what happens in FloTorch, right? So first of all, these things are add-ons, and they have to be ideally in your environment so that you can control them better, right? You can say, okay, I want my routing done locally like this, or my caching locally managed here. In case of FloTorch Gateway, while we are going to try today on FloTorch.ai, it's a free available tool on any cloud platform. You can try it, feel free to use it. Most of our customers don't use our free tool, and there is a reason for that, because as a gateway, all the traffic goes through the gateway, right? It's a door, it's an entry and exit point for all your GenAI traffic. You probably don't want it to go through some third-party gateway like FloTorch.ai. You would host it locally within your bank's environment, within your company's servers, or somewhere on your VPC on AWS, let's say, right? That's how most of our customers host our gateway. So within your environment, you have this entire box where it comes built in with observability, governance, and security, right? So every request goes through that. That's given. If you are using the gateway, every request goes through that. Now that request comes to this orange box, which we call FloTorch model or FloTorch endpoint. FloTorch endpoint is nothing but the same LLM. It could be any third-party LLM or a local LLM, which could be your fine-tuned model, right, on SageMaker or on your local GPU somewhere, right? It's so long as it's an endpoint that is OpenAI compatible using messages format, you can host it here or anywhere, and then it will be wrapped along with input guardrails, output guardrails, model routing options that I was talking about, and your application level caching. So that's the advantage. That example that I showed you before looks same on the surface, but internally it's able to take advantage of any of these things, right? And then the response gets sent back to the application. That's the example and we are going to actually do this. So like I said, you can have one or more guardrails here for input and output. You can have one or more models from Grok, Bedrock, Google, or any of these providers, right? Pretty much everyone from Azure, OpenAI, Google, AWS, Bedrock, Azure, all of the Cohere are all supported. You can use simple or semantic caching here if your application actually can use that, and then you can use different strategies, okay? Now, if that's what a FloTorch model looks like, right? Input guardrails, routing, caching, and then output guardrails. This whole box, you can fit in this blue box here. That's your FloTorch endpoint right there. This is definition of what an agent looks like, right? Agent means you have input schema, output schema. You have some FloTorch model that is registered with you. Internally, it could be caching, it could be using guardrails, it could be using routing. And then agent itself will have some prompts and goals. And then you can use your MCP server or local tools. Today we are going to actually try local tools and get an example going, right? So that's how you define your agent. FloTorch model and FloTorch agents can be both created through SDK. Today we are going to try and create them through the console and then use them in our SDK. But if you do that, that's what your traces will look like. You have 10 spans. This is an example call for some trace. And then this is the trace waterfall, where it will tell you where it is taking this 10 spans and 7.47 seconds, where all it took time and how much time it took at each step, where are you spending most of your time. And if you click on each of these, you'll actually see the JSON response from each of these services that are involved, right? And then the same is true for agents and so on, okay? I'm almost done with my slides, guys. So the last point, okay? Single pane of glass. If you're a decision maker where your team is looking at different models and they are trying to evaluate different models and they are trying to see what the outcome looks like, and I'm going to show you one example on live environment that I have, but you want to see for different FloTorch models that you have, how many requests have been processed in that workspace. So it's a particular workspace specific here. How many tokens were exchanged, what was the latency and the cost. Now this cost looks zero because, as you know, costs are very small for million tokens. So they go to like fifth or sixth decimal point here, precision, and then you can measure success rates over a period of time, and also your token cost, input-output token cost, and the total cost there, right? The new feature that was added recently is it will also show you with caching and routing how much money you have saved. So for some of the decision makers, that's a very important thing to know that, okay, by using these things, am I actually saving some money, right? Am I improving the speed? So it's essentially allowing you to build rapidly, write your code once and iterate often, because you don't have to change your business application. Hey, this new Sonnet 4.5 is out now. Sonnet 5.3 comes along, right? What do I do? Do I need to change my code? Where do I need to change? Can I test with different prompts and see which one works better? Can I maintain prompt versions? All those things are built in for you. You can use those. And then we are security first. We are penetration tested. We are SOC 2 compliant. We are able to kind of apply this centralized policy on which workspaces which users have access to those, and so on. And then easy integration we are going to talk about. In fact, we are going to use ADK, Google's Agent Development Kit, for our example today. You can do the same thing with Crew AI. Your favorite, pick your favorite orchestration engine. I'm not here in business to tell you which one you should use. There are probably many choices. And I was just reading an article today that talks about why we don't need more orchestration engines. So I completely agree with that. We should be making the existing orchestration engines better and allow them to do more complex things and make it easier for the end user. But right now, that's not the need, in my opinion, as well. There's the sales pitch. You can get billion tokens for free. We don't charge you. FloTorch.ai. You can click on that link. You can fill out a form here to kind of talk to me. I'll be happy to set up a demo for you and your team. We are going to do this live. So what we are going to do is, if you guys are ready, what you need is, on your laptop, you'll need internet access, and hopefully all of you have some Gmail account so that you don't have to worry about, hey, can I use my work email here? So let's get started. What we are going to do is go to FloTorch.ai. I'm going to do these steps as we go along, and please follow along with me. So if you go to FloTorch.ai, click on Get Started. You can use any of these. Next week at Oracle AI World Conference, we'll be hopefully launching on Oracle platform as well. We are just telling you that we are hosted on all these platforms. You can choose any one. I already registered on AWS with my email address. Do the same thing. Just click on AWS here and put in the first name, last name, some email address so that you can create an account. Once you have created an account, you should be able to mention an email address. You will verify your email address. Let me know when at least some of you are done with the first step. Again, I'll just go slow right now. FloTorch.ai. Click on Get Started right here at the top. Get Started. You'll have choices. I'll just click on AWS and then fill out the form. It's hardly 3 or 4 fields, your first name, last name, email address. Once you fill it out, it's going to send you that verification email. Click on that. It's going to ask you to set up org. Sets up some temporary org, like a demo organization or whatever you want to call it. I prefer you use your Gmail ID, just because we are going to use the free Gemini API key today for our application that we are going to write. So if you have a Gmail account, just make it easy by signing up with that. You'll get email there, and then you can verify your email address through that. Are we through? Can I just show you the next step? Okay. So if you then signed up and logged in, created your org. Is there a question there? Sorry. Okay, yeah, just feel free to ask us, okay? Once you sign up, you'll be super admin on this account, right? With these, you'll put in, your name will show up here, and then you'll have the administration tab. Now, you can add more users. You can invite users to the organization. We are not going to do that. You don't have to pay us. You can just click on workspaces, and you'll always see default workspace there for you. So if you click on default workspace, now you'll notice that your menu options are a lot more. Of course, in your case, the graphs will look empty because I have been doing these things over a period of time. But this is what I was talking about, that you can actually see cache savings and cache requests over time. In my case, I can go 45 days back and see what it looks like over a period of time. But these are different models with different requests and all that. But yours will look blank right now. The first thing you need to do is click on Settings. Okay, Settings, API Keys. And then New API Key. Give it some name, my key or something, right? And then the key it shows you, it's going to show it to you only once. It's a secure mechanism. So copy it over. I copied mine here. Please don't use mine. Use yours. But it's a long key that starts with SK, something goes on and on, right? So you'll be able to use your own key. Again, if you want to know how to do it, go to Settings, API Keys, New API Key, right at the top. Give it some name. You can create as many keys as you want. You can create as many workspaces as you want as well. No questions asked. So if you want to try different projects in different workspaces, sure, you can invite only certain users to certain workspaces, but not all. So once you create a new API key, make sure you store it because you're going to need it, okay? Are we good? Can we move on? Okay. The next thing to do is to go back to FloTorch.ai. Okay? Back to that same screen. Click on GitHub here, which will take you to resources link. Hey Satya, I see your photo profile there. Yeah. Looking good. So resources there, we are going to actually try examples from here today, right? So if you click on resources examples, and you'll see something like this. Go to FloTorch RAG notebooks, fetch example. You'll see it there. I'll just make it bigger if it helps. If you click on that, there are two notebooks here and a utils file. We are going to click on the first notebook, prerequisites.ipython notebook. And provided you have a Gmail account and you have registered at collab.google.com, all you need to do is click on Open in Collab here. I'll do that. It will open in my Collab account that I have logged in with my personal Gmail ID. You can do the same thing. Once you have that, you should be able to connect. Show of hands here. How many people have used Collab? Do I need to explain how Collab works, or anybody who doesn't know, please reach out to these guys. We can help you.
I think it's mentioned in brief. Not many people.
Not many people are familiar. I thought a lot of people raised hand. Okay. So Collab is just like your Jupyter notebook, if you are familiar with that. So that allows you to run one cell at a time, or you can run all the cells. It gives you a runtime environment with some Python capabilities. So you can click on connect here at the right top, right? So it will give you a runtime ability to kind of run this notebook here, okay, within your Gmail account. So it will show you something like that, RAM and disk at the top, okay? Once you have that, you need to click on the first cell and either use shift return, shift enter, whatever works, or click on, I don't recommend run all, but let's run one cell at a time for the timing so that you can understand. So what this is doing is it's mapping your Google Drive and it is checking out, Git cloning it to your Google Drive so that all the samples would be available within your Google Drive account. So I'll run that. it will show you a warning like this that, hey, this is not authored by Google. Yes, it is not. It is authored by us. And you can run it. It will connect to your personal Google Drive. I'll use my Gmail ID here. And I'm signing away my life to Google right now. But I will do that so that I can see what all it has access to, and then I'll hit continue. We are essentially just running some cells. It's doing three things primarily. One is it's mapping Google Drive so that your notebook can access local Google Drive that you have on your Gmail account. Second is it's going to create a directory called FloTorch, and it's going to then clone. Git clone is nothing but making a copy of that GitHub repo that I showed you onto your Google Drive, and then it will install FloTorch on your environment so that you can use FloTorch SDK wherever you need to. Can I move on? Are you guys with me? Satya, can you help somebody in the back as well? Anybody else needs help? I can. Oh, you need? Okay.
I tried to run the code just stock, and it just gave me this error. I think I need to create the file in Google Drive, do I?
No, you don't need to. But where did you open it from? From Collab?
Yeah,
from the Git repo? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and you have Collab access, right?
Yeah.
So click on files. Let's see if you have. It says no such file. Collab notebooks. Okay. So typically under Drive, can you go under Drive? No, here, right here. Yeah, just click on that. No, go on files again.
Okay.
Yeah, this drive here. Yeah. It says my drive, so the name should be different. Click on open my drive, please. Then account. No, that's not it.
That's just other files in my Google Drive.
Okay, so so this directory is somehow not getting created on yours.
So I probably just need to create it manually, right?
Yeah, just not really. Let's do one thing. Let's change this to content drive. Yeah, just get rid of this my drive. You have my drive too, right? Yeah, you do have my drive. Yeah. So Collab Notebooks folder is all you need to create in there.
Okay.
Just copy that folder name and just create one there. It should work. Okay.
It's a folder, right?
Yeah, it's just a folder. Anybody else? We are good? Did you get the help? Excuse me, sir. Did you get the help you needed? You're good? Okay. All right. Serge, are you good? Yeah. So, if you are able to run the first cell, maybe the new person, Vita, if you can help her out. If you are going to follow some of these, you'll be able to get some help from her. She'll get you set up for the lady in the back. All right, so moving on to the next one. Now we are trying to set up the Gemini key. This is where, remember I told you have a application and you can get your Gemini key. Show of hands, how many of us have Gemini key already? Anybody? Okay, so if you have it, all you need to do is run this cell and put that key over here. If it's validated, you're good to go. Okay, because all it's doing is it's going to go to Gemini. It's going to see if you have a valid API key or not. If you don't have it, like for example, I'll enter ABC, right? It's going to tell you that, hey, this is not good and you need to follow these steps, right? So what you need to do is, again, go to ai.google.dev. I'll go here and show you. And then free plan is what you should start with. You don't need to pay anybody for this. Get started, right? Just follow these steps, guys. So click on get your API key on the left-hand side. There is a button for that. And then this is changing the resolution to quite small, but hopefully you guys can see this, right? Click on the get API key option here. And then once you select, this is your get API key button right here that I was talking about. And then create API key. And then once you have the API key, you can give it some project name. I've just given it name like create project, FloTorch project. And then you'd be able to get your new key from Gemini. If you already have one but you don't want to use it, create a new one. That's fine too. I need some show of hands to see if people are already comfortable with this step or you need help. I'm not Google tech support, but I can try. I can try and give you access to your Gemini key. Okay. So if you have Gemini key, I'll wait a minute or so in case you were able to get it running, Andre? You were able to get it running, the cell? You got it running, right? Okay, awesome. So why do we need Gemini API key? So FloTorch, we got FloTorch API key, which is going to be the main key that you need access to. But think of it from an organization point of view, right? Every time, imagine that your organization has accounts on OpenAI, right? They are going to have to create a new key for every employee that is trying out different things or share the same key across different people. If they do that, if one of those employees changes departments or leaves, they have to disable that key and issue a new key to all those guys. Instead, what you can do here is once your administrator adds OpenAI key or Gemini key, right? That is a paid account, let's say. Now you can create as many keys for your employees or your team members or invite them, and if they are changing groups or departments, they leave the organization, you can simply disable their key. Nothing else needs to change, right? So keeping your LLM API key isolated to gateway like this and using the gateway API key, which we created already, makes a lot of sense, right? From the governance point of view, from change management point of view. Okay. So what we are going to do is we are going to take that key, API key that we get. Yeah, sure.
Can they also reuse the gateway API key, or they have to have each their own key?
You can share the same API key across users as well, up to you. But I wouldn't recommend it because then you and I are sharing the same key, I misuse it, and now we don't know if it was you or me, right? In the logs, it will just say that this key was used to make these calls, right?
The key doesn't go to the actual like RBAC.
No, it's not through here because what you need is two things, right? Email address to invite somebody and then their key. So you always know what key is associated with which person and what privileges they have. If you and I share the same key, we might have same privileges as well. You can set up permissions as to whether you're administrator, developer, member, right? So I recommend different keys for that purpose as well. Okay, so if you have a FloTorch.ai account, which we created already, right? And if you have Gemini API key, can we, okay? So you have Gemini API key and FloTorch API key. Am I right so far? Okay. We are going to go back to another notebook in the same folder. Okay. This is just to help you get started with this. You already have a Gemini API key and you already have your FloTorch API key as well. Just for easier access, copy them somewhere like this, right? Just for the time being. So you have your FloTorch API key and you have your Google API key, okay? You copy them to some notepad or something because they are both going to be useful and handy for you. What you're going to do next is go back to resources. You can leave Google Colab and go back to FES example. So FES stands for Facebook AI search, okay, and that's a in-memory database which can be used for RAG. It is great for experimentation and things like what we are going to do today. It is not meant for production use. So please do not consider using FES for your production use cases because it has certain things, it doesn't have the index operational features. It doesn't have scalability aspects or even security for that matter. It can get the index corrupted very easily. It's not written to the disk the right way. So it's meant for in-memory operations, just to show you the power of RAG, right? So we are going to click on the second notebook, Gemini RAG client with fast.ipython notebook. Let's open that. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click on open in Colab. It's going to open that same notebook in my Google account, right? These are the 7, 8, 9 steps that we have mentioned. Most of these initial things you already have. So make sure you connect first. At the right top, right here, there is a connect that should show you this instead of connect button. Once you have that available, go to each cell. In your case, it may not be Colab notebooks, it could be something else. Depends on what the drive is mapped to. I'm assuming it is mapped to Colab notebooks. I'm going to run this again, just so that we have all these examples created, right? And Google Drive accessible. So why are we doing it this time, right? First time it made sense because we were checking out the Git repo. The second time we are doing it because now I want to make sure that the file can be uploaded locally or from internet. Today we are going to try it from internet, but you can upload it locally as well from your Google Drive, let's say. Okay? So I'm going to, every notebook needs to be given that access. I'm going to give that access. And once I do that, it will finish through this cell. Once it is done, it will mount my drive. I can install some extra libraries. There is PyPDF2. We are going to actually use a PyPDF functionality to parse the PDF file we read from online. All this is running in your Google Colab environment, okay? And when you see this thing moving, this circle moving, that means it's doing its thing, and you are seeing the log. Once it is done, it will show you this button with some time it took to actually run it. Few more things for FloTorch. These are just dependencies, and this is the actual diagram that I wanted you guys to see. So how is it running, right? So there is a Google Colab environment here, right? And then there's a FloTorch gateway. We have that account created, right, on this default workspace, and then which has observability and all this stuff. And then you have LLMs. We are going to particularly use the Google Gemini LLM from here, right? So what I would like us to go to is go back to default workspace. We are going to switch between notebook and console. So again, go back to your console.flotorch.cloud account. You will see default workspace there, right? Go to your model registry, providers. Yours will look blank, right? I have all these providers and all these keys added. So what you need to do is add LLM provider. On the right top corner, there is a add LLM provider button. Select your provider to be Google Generative AI. As I was telling you, there are all these different providers available. You can add LLMs from any one of them. Today we are going to specifically look at Google's Generative AI. I'll give it some name like my Google demo provider, something like that, right? And oh, sorry, it can't be upper lowercase, so I'll just call it my Google provider. Description field is not really needed. Now the key, the API key here is the key you just got from the prerequisites notebook, right? Remember I told you to get your Gemini API key and copy it somewhere? That's your API key. You're going to copy it over to your provider screen. Once you're done with that, hit create, and it will create a new provider. So in the left menu, if you go to model registry providers and then add LLM provider, I'll just wait a little bit. So once you add a provider, you can add multiple models from multiple providers here, right? Because we are agnostic of which LLM. And can I move on to the next step here? Okay. So go to models Again, you're not going to see any models in your screen. Under model registry, there is models. If you click on models, you'll see a blank screen. At the right top, you'll see create FloTorch model or FloTorch endpoint. Give it some name. What do you want to call it? My model or whatever your name, right? Whatever name you give here has to be lowercase, one word, okay? No symbols, special symbols or things like that. And it's the name with which it will be registered. So give it some name, model 9 or my model or Gemini model or Gemini, just Gemini, right? And it will be FloTorch / that name. Okay. Once you hit create, you're going to end up on screen something like this. This is too big. Okay, hold on. Let me fix something simpler. Yeah, let me take this. Right? You'll end up on screen like this. Okay. It will be all blank in your case. What you need to do is click on plus sign here for models. Select Google as your provider because that's the provider you added. You have not added other providers or whatever name you gave, right? My Google provider is the name I gave or Google, whichever one you added. In the drop down, you should see Gemini 2.5 Flash. Let's use this model Gemini 2.5 Flash. I'll just wait here a little bit for people to catch up. Let's make sure we set this up correctly. Can I get some thumbs up on people who are able to do it? 1, 2. Oh, you guys are fast. What am I thinking here? No, I want to make sure that people who also need help get the help. Okay. I'm trying to make it not boring for those of you who already know this stuff, but still make sure that it is helpful for other people as well. Okay. So please ask me to go faster if you all are in agreement. You'll see that we have default pricing added here, right? This is pricing that is publicly available, but you might have a specially negotiated deal where it costs you less for the million input tokens and million output tokens. You can put your new values, right? Because the cost calculation is using this for every token that is going through the gateway and coming back. Let's assume all this is correct, and so you'll say save configuration, right? And you'll, sorry, I'll add that model myself, right? I said Gemini 2.5 Flash, so let's add that, right? And I'll get rid of the GPT-4o mini. So that's the only model I have, just like you guys, right? Gemini 2.5 Flash from Google Generative AI, no guardrails, no routing because you cannot route with a single model. If you have multiple models, you will think about routing and then no caching needed, right? You're going to hit publish button here at the right top and then give some, this is like your Git commit, right? You give some comment so that other people can see why your child says something like Gemini 2.5 Flash model added. And this is also an important step. So you can maintain different versions of the model without making it the latest model. Keep it in draft stage, make it only accessible to you, not publish it for rest of the world. In our case, we want to publish it for everybody because we are going to access it from our notebook. So I'm going to check that box and hit publish. In case you forgot to publish it, the easiest thing to do is to make a revision and then this time make it latest, or the other one is to go to this icon here and then once you have that, you can click on a particular version and say mark it as latest. So you can either mark the old version as latest or the new version. I'm fine with the current selection, so I'm going to leave it alone. Once I'm done with this, right, please note down the name here. In my case, it is model 7, right? I gave my model name as model 7. If you go back to model registry to model 7, you will see these two icons, right? There is one copy icon for the model name, which is FloTorch / model 7. Oops. The second one is your actually code snippet. It's going to show you the Python code you need in order to get this model working, right? So if you copy this code and if you paste it in your favorite code editor, replace this with your actual API key that you have, and then if you call this, it will work. And it will give you a response back, right? So this is as simple as that. If you are a TypeScript person, then you can use this. If you use curl, then you can use that. everywhere, the only thing you should need is the gateway key, right? And it knows how to actually get you to the right place. So far, so good. Are we good? Model 7 is my name of the model. You all will have your own names, okay? Once you have that, let's go back to the notebook on Google Colab. And we are going to continue. We already set up our API keys. So if you click on this one, right? Remember the two things it needs, right? It's going to use the FloTorch API key and it's going to use a model name. So you need to hit enter. First, copy paste your API key. I'm going to do this one and paste it in my notebook. Hit enter. It asks you for model name you created. So I'm going to say FloTorch. Or in fact, I'll show you how to get it from console. Just go here, copy that, right? It copied to the clipboard, come back to your notebook and just paste it. FloTorch/model7, that's my name of the model. I'll hit enter. And both these variables are now set in my notebook to kind of what model to use and what API key it should have. Once you are set with these, you don't need to have other things. The next thing you need to know is which PDF file you want to upload and point to. So you can upload it locally or you can give it some URL. I'll just give you an example. For example, if I'm just going to open this so you guys can see this. It's a 10K statement by NVIDIA, right? Hopefully everybody knows that company there. It's their annual statement that is filed with SEC. It's not the latest one, but something, it's like 130 pages long and a pretty good, decent size PDF. So what I'll do is I'll take that URL, I'll copy it, and then I'll run this next cell where when it asks me for PDF URL, I'm going to paste that URL. You can put some other PDF file as well. So long as it's publicly accessible, it should be able to get that. And then it will tell you that it has about 1.2 million tokens. It guesstimated or characters, right? Now the next thing to do would be to start extraction. So the way it works is you take your PDF, you read the PDF characters to text first, ignore images for the time being. All the text gets converted, okay? The important step is to now then convert those to sentences embedding, okay? So we are using sentence embedder, but you can use different chunking embedders as well for fast. The easiest thing to do is to split the text into sentences, which is what we are going to do here. So it will split into 2,172 sentences there, right? And these are some examples. Table of contents, state sentence is there, then some other number, and you can. These are just, I'm just printing first 3 sentences here, right? And then what you need to do is use a sentence embedder or transformer, we call it. All mini LM L6 version 2 model. It's just a freely available embedder. Show of hands, how many people know what embedding is? Okay. So in really simpler words, if you have the text, right, in a book, let's say, right, if you, at least in older days, if you went to the back of the book, right, and if you were trying to see index, it will tell you certain word appears on page 62, page 79, page 138, and so, right? So it's a reverse lookup, you can call it. Something similar we are trying to do, but how do you get it to do that is by converting every word into some binary, or if not binary, some representation which is encoded, right? So by encoding it into some unique identifier, it can find out what the distance between 2 sentences is, how similar they are, let's say, right? So here, every vector, we are trying to make it a sentence, and that's why we first split everything into a sentence. Next thing, we are going to initialize this all mini LM L6. It's basically a very small scale embedding for sentence level embedding. What it will do is it will download it from Hugging Face. It's using actually Hugging Face library for embedder, and then it will actually load the particular model, and then it will get embedding done. Now what you need to do is you need to actually create index with it. Indexing is that step where I was saying that, hey, you can look it up and say for any new information that is provided, what is it most similar to? If I ask a question, I'm looking for answer out of all the sentences that are indexed, right? It will be able to find out which sentences are most similar or which are most closer to what I'm looking for, and then form a response with that. So the 3-step process in a RAG that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. First step is to index data and store it in some vector database of some form. You could use LaunchDB. There are like 8 or 9 different databases we support, vector databases, right? FAS is just one example. It's not even a full-fledged production database, but there is LaunchDB, there is OpenSearch, there is tons of different choices you have there, right? Now, once you create that index, you'll be able to then ask these questions. So first step is to create database and store it in vector database. Second is to have your query use the same embedding so that you can ask for what's the similar retrieved context, right? What vector databases are good at, they are good at understanding which context or which chunks of text it should retrieve and return back. Once those chunks are retrieved by a vector database, it is actually job of the LLM to infer based on that. So if you want your responses by LLM to be really good, make sure you are also focused on the retrieved context, because your retrieved context is going to tell you if it has answered in it or not. And so if you are familiar with RAGs, there is a particular evaluation metric called context precision and context recall. That context it is referring to in case of RAG would be the retrieved context. Right? How good is your vector database at retrieving the relevant information for LLM to get the answer from? Right? So those are the 3 steps. Once your index is created, you get the green light there. Now you have different things you can do. You can generate questions. If you don't want to type questions yourself, you can generate questions, or you can ask some generic questions, or you can manipulate it whichever way you want, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to start with this. It's going to use the FloTorch endpoint, FloTorch model, which is model 7 in my case, remember? And then my API key, and I'm going to pass the sentences here. There are 2,172 sentences, and then it's going to query that entire database, indexed database, and get me the answer that I need, right? So we are first generating questions just for the fun of it. You could ask questions directly if you knew that NVIDIA's 10K statement and what to ask, you could type that question. But because not most of us are financial analysts, what we thought would be fun would be to actually try out these different ways that using LLM can you ask actually questions. So it will come up with certain questions and their corresponding answers. So this is one example right here in front of us. So if you have a particular question that is asked, then the corresponding answer is printed there, right? There is another way. You can also ask some standard questions, right? So if you are asking questions like this, okay, for example, right, where, oops, yeah. So what types of GPUs are included in their products it's going through things, but what percentage of total revenue let it finish and then I'll scroll up. Right? So I'm talking what might result from changes to these agreements, right? So again, this is in context of previous question. Let's look at this one. Query 3. What percent of total revenue did the sales to customers outside of US for the fiscal year 2025? Given this, that's the answer it came up with. This was the retrieved context. So it told you what sentences and then the corresponding example, right? So this is just a way. You can also ask some questions. I have given some sample questions here, but you can replace this with your own questions in the array. If it's relevant, it will give you answer. You can also ask some questions that information may not even be in the document. And you will notice that this is actually going to hallucinate. It's going to actually give you some similar sentence because we are not thresholding to say that, hey, give me only the most similar sentences above certain score. It's going to give you any similar score and it's going to hallucinate based on that. Are we clear so far? The last step, which is what I wanted you to see, is now if you go back to your console under logs, if you see this option here, logs, if you run these cells, you should be able to see an entry like this, right? Model 7 Google using Gemini 2.5 Flash, no caching, 191 prompt tokens, completion tokens 10, total tokens is 201. It's going to cost you whatever that tiny amount is. Oops, sorry. Let me go back. And it took 1.2 seconds. Overhead of the gateway for 1.2 second was 7 milliseconds. So often we get this question like, hey, is the gateway adding overhead? Yes, it will, because it will take some compute cycles to do these things. But how much percentage is 7 milliseconds of 1200 milliseconds? That's a very tiny percentage overhead that you're going to pay for, but it comes at the cost of not only this, but also being able to have trace and see what was applied at each step, what was the outcome. So what was the model lookup, what was passed as session ID, what was the strategy. At each of these steps, you'll be able to see the results of the execution and the corresponding parameters that are passed. This is information, you can either see it like this or in a visual format. If you see, it took 1.2 seconds, like I said, and this is the distribution of that, right? But this is the observability I'm talking about. You can even search current logs for certain request ID and so on. So you can find out certain applications, right? Are we good? Can we move on to second example, please? With agents. 1, 2 hands. I need at least 4 to keep going. 3. One more. Can we move on to the second example? Yes. Okay, we are good? Okay. So let's do one thing. I'm going to go back to the same resources link. If you have forgotten where it is, then go to FloTorch.ai. Okay. Go to that GitHub link again, in case you want to. Examples. And we are going to do FloTorch Agentic examples, the Agentic workflow, okay? FloTorch example, resources examples, FloTorch Agentic examples. We are going to add more here. As you can see, we just updated it a few hours ago. We should be adding more examples here. So let's click on this one. Remember, we have added, I'm calling it model 7, whatever model names you have registered with. You already have a FloTorch model added. What we are going to do next is add 2 agents. Okay. Here is a problem statement. If I give you a PDF, now you can answer questions on it, right? Using FAS RAG example that we did. But what if my problem statement is slightly different, right? My problem statement is, if I give you a PDF file, large PDF file to read from, can you somehow come up with the diverse set of topics on that file after reading it? I don't even know what it is. I don't care. You need to do that part, and you need to also then from those topics come up with an executive summary for me. Don't just summarize the first paragraph of the document. Read the whole thing, come up with topics, and then make sure those topics are covered in the executive summary. So if you want it that elaborate, you are essentially talking about 2 different people. There is a person who should be creating topics, right? If I am doing this job, I'll ask 2 people to do it, right? Together, work as a team. First person comes up with topics by reading that document. The second person says, okay, I have the document, I have the topics. His job is to write executive summary. He's a content writer, right? You could write it for marketing purposes. You could write it for whatever executive brief. But there are 2 agents, essentially 2 people, each with different goal. The first person's goal is creating topics. Second person's goal is to actually come from those topics, creating an executive summary. First person will also need some help. First person is going to say, okay, I can do that, but I need some way to read PDF files. How am I going to do that? So you can either have a MCP server, MCP is Model Context Protocol, through which you can actually pass that URL or that PDF file and it will come back with text, or you can add a local tool. Today, for example, we are going to add local tool, okay, to the first agent. Its job would be to take the PDF file, read it using that local tool, come up with content, pass it to your model, Gemini Flash, in this case, right, 2.5 Flash, that you already created on FloTorch console, and then the 5 topics should be in a particular JSON format, let's say, and then that should be passed on to second agent, which is a content writer agent. Content writer agent's job is to take those topics, take that entire text, and then come up with executive summary, right? You can imagine, this is the example we are going to try, but you can imagine now writing a third agent could be a proofreader, right? That agent's job would be to do the fact checks, okay? I'll show you something that I came across while waiting for this session to start. This was in my LinkedIn post today from a friend of mine, Eduardo. This is true. Deloitte Australia had to pay these fines because it was not only littered with error, but 3 non-existent academic references. Okay? If I call it hallucination, it makes it sound awesome, right? It's not a mistake, it's a bug. I can call it hallucination. That's just fraud, okay? That's the real world. If people are doing it, it's fraud. If agents are doing it, you pay the fines, right? And get away with it. Because who holds the bottom line here, right? So if you are looking for that proofreader, right? Somewhere in that Claude and all that LLM, right? Somewhere a person or agent should be proofreading what is done, right? And that's what some of the guardrails do, by the way. Guardrails are not meant for just protecting you from sensitive topics, right? Let's say you have a HR bot and somebody asks it a question about Russia-Ukraine war. You don't want it to answer that, you can block it. That's one way. But guardrails can also be used, especially if you are an AWS customer, they have Bedrock guardrails, right? Which allow you to do fact checks of the LLM responses. Is there an independent third-party evidence of what I'm saying? If it can't find it, it will flag that. And you can block it, you can redact it, you can even report it for further review, right? So I'm just sharing this with you. I have no reason to badmouth anybody, but this is a real world problem. This was literally on my LinkedIn feed today. Okay, so what we are going to do is you can add a third agent for evaluation. That's what my point was. And I'm going to show you how you can evaluate as well quickly. But let's go through this. I'm going to again do the same thing, open in Collab. I'm going to kind of go through this a little bit faster. Hopefully this is making sense. I'll click connect. Once I'm connected, the example is well documented. You can go through it. You can install the required packages. Again, you're mapping it so that you can upload PDF locally or store results locally. In my case, I'm actually going to show you example of loading a random PDF research paper from somewhere, right? To write executive summary on. I'll run some of these installs and dependent libraries. Once I'm done with keys, I will set up my API key. This is FloTorch API key I'm talking about, so I'm going to just copy this over. There you go. So I'll just paste it there, hit enter. Now comes the interesting part, the configuration setup. Let's pay attention to this one, okay? What we are saying here, our application name, right? I'm just calling it FloTorch agent example, some user ID. Now, this is not a gateway user ID, it's the user ID you want authorized, right? So you can give it something so that you can see it in your logs and see if that person should be asking you. In some cases, you have anonymous users, so you don't need to give it anything or just give it some random thing like this. You have gateway URL, and now you have 2 agent names. This is very important, the names will matter. Topic creator and content writer. So what we are going to do is, we'll just do that in a minute, but let me just run this helper function. This is my local tool. Once it is done, I'll just go to this FloTorch console setup steps, right? Step number 5. What I'll do is I'll go to my console, agent builder, under agents, there is agent builder. If I go to my console, agent builder, you can create 2 agents using the same model, right? They could be using different models, they could be using same FloTorch models. So first one is called topic creator agent, which is using model 7, right? It will need system prompt and agent goals. How do I get this system prompt and agent goals that you write, Hemant? So you can go back here and you can literally copy paste this system prompt from here, right? It's an AI document analysis agent. It's supposed to do this kind of analysis of any given document. And as an example output, it's supposed to generate. I'm giving it some JSON format, right? LLMs do very well when you tell them what output format you need them to talk with respect to, especially if 2 agents are going to talk to each other. They better be using JSON. XML is another way. I'm not sure exactly how good LLMs are at XML schemas. I prefer JSON for that reason. So you can give it some example. So that's my system goal, a system prompt. And then my agent goal is to read a document, identify 5 most relevant or interesting topics based on its content. And the intended use is for topics can be used for summarization, right? I'm just giving it some more information for it to be meaningful. Again, that same information is copy pasted here, right? Extracted topics can be used for summarization, and then the system prompt is also mentioned here. This enable sync is how you decide whether any code change here should be reflected in the Google Colab execution or not. Every 60 seconds, I'm enabling sync. So in case I change something here, it will get reflected there. Instead of 5, I want just 3 topics. I can make that change here. It will start generating 3 topics. My business application did not change. My code did not change. I made that change happen through here. I might say that once it is finalized, I don't want sync enabled at all. You should never be able to sync. That's fine too, right? But this is a wonderful feature to have, so you can make changes to your agents at runtime without actually having to change any line of business code, right? So if you have set up this agent, I'm just giving it some name TC here, okay? You can create topic-creator. That's the name we have used there. So you can use the same name. And then you create nothing else needs to be specified here except first agent is supposed to generate output in this schema, right? So I've given it JSON schema.org, and then it's supposed to have properties, topics, array. If you want to, again, copy this from here, right? Just go here, output schema suggested for topic creator, just copy it, paste it in the output schema of agent 1. Now again, notice your first agent did not have any input schema because that's coming as input, the PDF content itself, right? That you're going to read with the tool. It's going to go through model 7 and it's going to generate 5 topics as per this schema. Second agent, which is a content writer agent, actually will need input, this thing as input. So how do you configure that, right? So for second agent, this is content writer agent, you will need that as input schema. So you'll see that for the second agent, input schema is exactly same as the first agent's output schema. Because if first agent is generating 5 topics in a certain key value format, second agent needs to read it in the exact same format. Make sense? All right. So you copy this system prompt, goals, right? And then the FloTorch model. Again, in your case, you'll have to see what you have set up as your model. But in my case, it is TC and CW. CW is my content writer. I'll change it to use model 7, right? I'll just make a revision here. I can use the same one or use model 7, right? You can use one or more models. That's the point, okay? And again, here, your input schema is exactly same, but your output schema has not, you don't need to define it. I have not defined tools or anything else. I have defined system goals for the second one. I've copied it over, gave it some name, CW, and then save agent details, right? Once you have these, make sure you publish. I forgot to mention that even for topic creator as well as for content writer, if you don't publish, the code will not get synced, right? So once you publish, again, mark it as latest. It is no different than the model we created. I'll call it latest version or something, right? Once it is done, you have both the topic creator and content writer agents created here. Now you can do the workflows like this one. I can show you this insurance underwriting workflow, right? I have a loan processor agent, I have credit analyzer agent, I have risk assessment agent. I can create drag and drop workflows like this. It's fancy, looks great. You can do things like that. We don't want to do fancy today, right? Because we are hardcore programmers here trying to get our hands dirty. So what we are going to do is we are going to go to that notebook, okay? And make sure that these names, this is very important step, guys. These names that you have put in here are the actual names of topic creator and content writer, because names matter, right? The only way I can identify an agent is by its name right now. So these names will matter, provided you have the right names there. Copy this URL. Let's open and see what's in there, right? So this is I think it was a research paper on experimental evaluation of PHP's curl library performance. Ooh, fun topic. But let's say that's the paper that I want my first agent to read, come up with 5 topics, and then the second one to write executive summary on. Just copy this URL, https://arxiv.org. If you go back to your original notebook, you'd be able to go through these cells, right? This is another one. I hope I didn't miss anything. Yeah. You can, sorry, I didn't mention my name. I didn't run the previous cells. Hold on. So this cell I need to run. I'm going to call it TC. This one as CW, right? Once I'm done with this, I will run this. Let's run this again. So it should work well. Now I'm setting up my agents. There are 2 runners, runner 1, runner 2. They are both actually using Google's agent development kit. There is a wrapper class called ADK, ADK session, and then there is going to be ADK agent, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to use the same Google's agent development kit. You can use CrewAI. We have similar functions for that too, or LangChain or LangGraph. In this example, I'm using the ADK, and I'm creating a runner for topic creator and then for writer agent. Once I have done that, I will write a function that actually calls agent with a particular message. Session is how it transfers information from one agent to another. Sessions are passed on. And so I'll execute both these. And then here is where things come together, where I'm saying create my first agent, okay, and then get response by calling run single turn for topic creator agent, and then pass that same session to content writer, and then content writer's output is what I'm going to print. If I run this cell, it's asynchronous function called content from PDF. I'll now run the main function, which is actually calling that content from PDF. It will ask me for a prompt of which PDF file you want to parse and write this executive summary on. So I'll give it that PDF that I got, right? And once I hit enter, what it's going to do is it's going to go through by reading the text. It's using the local tool for that. Once it is done reading the tool, it's going to come up with 5 topics. And then so PDF, you can use any of them, but it's linked. I'll just use one example PDF there. And then once it is done with those 5 topics, they'll get passed on to the second agent. Second agent will actually write the executive summary like this, right? So what are the different thoughts, analysis? I don't even know if this is right or not. but hopefully this is making sense, right? So the way agents work, again, the last part here is if you go back to your logs, you will see that there is a pair of logs now, okay? Two different logs because there are agents actually both using the same model, and then the corresponding traces and the corresponding costs and all those things will be mentioned. It took 21 seconds, right, for running this one. And then if you look at where it spent the time, right, it will tell you all the different spans it took. Okay. I have 5 minutes left for my session. I can use those to go over. Just if you go back to, I'm just going to show you this one more time, okay? There are more examples here, right? And like I said, console.bookmark this, console.flotorch.cloud, or you can always go to get started AWS and you'll end up here anyway. But this is easy way for you to add a new provider. You may not be using Google Gemini, right? You may be using something else. Add that provider, add models for that provider. You can add as many models as you want. As I was showing you here, take example of this, right? I have so many different models from OpenAI, Grok, and Google, right? And I can use them in round robin. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If I want, I can also say that, hey, use Qwen at certain time of the day, or use Qwen only for certain keywords, right? I can enable this model only for certain keywords that, hey, when you get these kind of questions with these keywords, pass it to Qwen, otherwise keep it round robin. So there are several different ways in which you can do these things. Evaluation part, which is the most important for many of you. This is an experiment I ran, right? So if you ran it against some knowledge base, let's say, where you have indexed thousands of data, right? You can run multiple experiments. Here what I've done is I took entire AWS Bedrock documentation, indexed it, and now I'm asking some 50 questions, right? Questions look like this. What multimodal data formats does Amazon Bedrock knowledge base support, right? And this is supposed to be the ground truth answer as per their website, right? So I compiled this from their website, and this is the generated answer of the LLM. But what is interesting to see here is I have used model 7, the same model that we just used, right? Gemini Flash, and I can select so I don't care about faithfulness and maliciousness because it's not generating code. Let's say I want to know more about KNNs and how many example prompts it needed, right? If there are 3 sections here, you can sort your data of experiments based on accuracy, which is context precision and answer relevancy. Remember I was telling you about that? This is accuracy, right? Or duration, how long it took to answer 50 questions, or the directional cost. So if you are looking for something that is cheapest, right, then it will be model 6, and it's going to have 69% answer relevancy, and it's going to take 2 minutes 24 seconds to answer 50 questions. If you want something fastest, it will take you 43 seconds with model 8, okay, but it will have lower relevancy. If you are looking for most relevant model, that will be model 7, but look at the first 2 entries. Both are using same model 7, right? What is the difference between their answer relevancy? About 0.02, right? 2 percentage points, but this is taking half the time of this. So it's same Gemini model, Gemini Flash model on same data set, but if you give it 1 shot prompt versus 2 shot prompt, it will be slightly more accurate, but it's going to take more time to process that as well, right? So you can reduce the time by half by giving just 1 prompt example on how to answer certain questions. It's using the top 5 chunks from the knowledge base, vector database, and it's pretty relevant. So then you will select this and you will click on deploy, and then you can just hit that button there and you're on your way. You can start using that model with 1 prompt example and top 5 chunks retrieved. So it will be available here as a RAG endpoint, and then you can just start using it, right? So that's the power of one single platform. Okay, if I can summarize this whole thing, right? If you are building a POC, just use no-code tool, that's fine too. If you want to build something here and then use it in your SDK, we saw how to do that. But then in either case, you want observability and governance, which is built in, and you have ability to go from evaluation, POC, to production in matter of that CI/CD pipeline that you're familiar with. That's it. I'll stop here. If we are at booth 31 in the whatever that downstairs thing is, Rio Grande. I think it's called Rio Grande. But stop by, ask me any questions. I'll be here around for at least some more time till they kick me out. Thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.